Hello everyone, Daisy Daniel here, coming to you live every Monday and Thursday to do a reflection on the book, The Language of Letting Go. They're short, they're concise, they're very educational. It will be food for thought for you, and then we could expand on it even longer if you choose. If you're hearing this on the replay, feel free to leave comments. I know some of you are hearing them on YouTube and getting something out of them anyway. If anything, I am, and that's what matters. Every day we are on a learning journey, and hopefully you are too, that you're using this pandemic to do amazing things for yourself and for others. And can't wait to see how this book is going to help others out there going through similar things. For those of you that aren't familiar with this book, it is written by Melody Beattie, and it's a book about codependency. A lot of our problems stem from being codependent, and that's why I like it so much, and I knew that it would touch a nerve with many people. And it's not a fun topic to talk about, but it is foundational for many other issues such as abuse, and that is why I wanted to invest time in sharing this with the public, and I hope that it helps you the way it has helped me. For those of you that don't know me, I am a Christian personal resilience life coach. I coach in all levels of personal development, but what I most like to do is coach women who are in or out of or coming out of an abusive relationship, a parental alienation, and I also coach children. I'm a certified teacher as well, and my degree is in psychology. You can learn more about that on my website at www.mymomentlc, which stands for lifecoaching.com. And I hope you check out my work and what I do, what I'm about. All right, so let's get started. What I do is I read an impromptu reflection from the book. I go in order, but I never know what I'm going to read ahead of time. I do know the topic, and I only do that for advertisement purposes. So I know the title, but I have no idea what comes after the title. I do that live in front of you, and I underline the parts that speak to me, and then I expound on it. And I love it. So let's get started. I am on page 124. I know some of you have the book and you read it later on your own. Page 124, Learning New Behaviors. She starts off with a quote from one of her books entitled Codependent No More. And that is like the Bible for codependence. If you haven't read that, it's a very good book. Read it many, many years ago, but I need to read it again. Here goes. Sometimes we'll take a few steps backward. That's okay too. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's part of going forward. That's a very good quote, especially for perfectionists. Perfectionists don't like going backwards ever. So that's a good quote, and we'll touch on that a little bit later when I'm done. Life is a gentle teacher. She wants to help us learn. The lessons she wants to teach us are the ones we need to learn. Some say they are the lessons we choose to learn before we were born. We chose to learn before we were born. Others say they are the lessons that were chosen for us. It's frustrating to be in the midst of learning. It is like sitting in algebra class, listening to a teacher explain a subject behind our comprehension. We do not understand, but the teacher takes the understanding for granted. It may feel like someone is torturing us with messages that we shall never understand. We strain and strain. We become angry, frustrated, confused. Finally, in despair, we turn away, deciding that the formula will never be available to our mind. Later, while taking a quiet walk, we break through. quietly the gift of understanding has reached that deepest place in us. We understand, we have learned. The next day in class, it's hard for us to imagine not knowing. It is hard to remember the frustration and confusion of those who have not yet caught on. It seems so easy now. Life is a gentle teacher. She will keep repeating the lesson until we learn. It is okay to become frustrated, confused, and angry. Sometimes it is okay to despair. Then it is okay to walk away and allow the breakthrough to come. It shall. Help me remember, here's a prayer at the end. Help me remember that frustration and confusion usually precede growth. If my situation is challenging me, it is because I'm learning something new. Rising to a higher level of understanding. Help me be grateful even in my frustration. That life is an exciting progression of lessons. Okay, and I'm going to just take a moment to write a little note here that I don't want to forget at the end that I would like to add. Okay. This has a lot of good stuff in it, so let's start breaking it down. The title again on page 124 is Learning New Behaviors. And she started off with a quote from Codependent No More. Sometimes we'll take a few steps backward, that's okay too. Sometimes it is necessary, sometimes it's part of going forward. I think the important thing to remember is that even though we will take steps backwards, we will have issues come up where we feel like we are not being productive. Right now, I'm displaced from my home. I'm not in my natural environment. I'm living with family, and it's great. Family is great, but it's not your home. You feel out of place, and you have to learn to adapt. And I'm going on week 5, and it could feel like I'm taking steps backwards, but actually I know I'm not, because God is using this time not only for personal growth, but He's just opening all kind of doors for me, and a lot of it is educational things that are coming my way. I'm meeting many people and connecting and just feeling really good about where I'm at, even though I'm displaced. And so to the natural eye, it looks like I'm taking steps backwards. Even in my own mind, I could think that at times, but I know that I'm not. I know that this is all part of something that is coming that is greater. A new and improved home, perhaps, going back to the same home that's new and improved, possibly moving to a different home. But I do know this, that God is in control, and when we feel that way, just know something better is coming down the pike. And it's just up to you to stay steady, stay hopeful, and prayerful, and know that it's all going to work out in the end. A year from now, when I do one of these lives, I could look back and say, man, I remember when I was sitting outside in the yard, and I felt like I had taken some steps backwards. But look at what God did with that situation, with 2 floods in my home, back to back within a 2.5-month period. And I know I'm going to write about it. I know I'm going to vlog about it. And I write down all the lessons I'm learning during this time, because it's a very unique time, I think, for many of us, with the coronavirus and just personal things that we all go through, because life keeps happening, right? Whether the virus is here or not. She starts by saying, life is a gentle teacher. Okay? She wants to help us learn. She assigns the role of gentle teacher to a female. The lessons she wants to teach us are the ones we need to learn. That's true. A lot of times, similar situations keep arising in our lives because we have not dealt with certain things, and they will continue to arise. And there is a verse in the Bible, and I'm sorry I can't remember all these verses where they're at. I've never been good at memorizing scripture, but I know scripture. So if you Google it, you will find it. But it says that God actually hinders prayers, and it has to do with the male, actually, the men, when they pray. And I don't remember the details. It has something to do with wives and relationships. But that God will actually hinder prayers. And so we could be praying for the same thing over and over and over and over again, but the prayers don't get answered because God actually hinders them. That's pretty scary. I'm going to look that one up because I just randomly thought of that, but hindered prayers. Then she goes on to say, others say that the lessons were chosen for us. That could be. I am of the belief that we choose. We have freedom to choose. God doesn't just have this detailed plan that he forces us to do. He gives us choices at all times. And then she goes on to say, we do not understand, but the teacher takes the understanding for granted. She's talking about when she was sitting in algebra class, or I thought of when I was sitting in algebra class actually in college. First time I ever got an F in school. And, well, that's not true. I got an F in geometry in high school. I've never liked math. And yes, I'm a teacher, and I admit that, and I still don't like math. And I got an F in geometry, but then in college I took pre-algebra, college algebra, and I got an F. But then I took it with another teacher and I got an A. And just like she said, little by little, your understanding is opened. And it was the teacher, the style that they had, how they were able to communicate, that my understanding was opened and I was able to actually get an A. So I went from an F to an A, go figure. You would think I would have got a C, but no, I got an F with the first teacher and an A with the second one. So teachers do have a lot to do with the learning process. I know that for sure. But it is hard in the beginning, but then something happens, your understanding is opened, and then it's not so hard. But this is what we need to watch out for, those coming behind us who then find it hard too, for us not to be judgmental and say, oh, it's so easy. How come you think it's so hard? It's their journey, it's their pain, and we shouldn't compare our journey, our pain with them. We should be sympathetic always and be there to encourage and to help. It says, it may feel like someone is torturing us with the messages that we shall never understand. I know I torture myself when it comes to IT, techie stuff, and I have two brothers who are very techie. One in particular who helps me quite a bit with tech, and he's amazed at how much I don't retain when it comes to tech. And I'm not amazed because I know how difficult those concepts are for me. And sometimes he'll have to teach me 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 times the same thing. And then eventually it clicks. And I'm like, oh, I know how to do that now. And I'm so proud of myself. Poor brother, he's the sacrificial lamb that has to teach me tech. Doesn't have to, he chooses to. He's a great brother. But you could feel like that, like you'll never understand things. You'll never get that right. And I think a lot of that too are the messages that are played in our minds, whether someone told us those things, it could have been kids at school, it could have been your own teachers that told you that you wouldn't amount to anything. I remember a piano teacher I had one time. I had always wanted to be a piano teacher. I've always wanted to learn to play the piano. And as a child, I couldn't get lessons. We were poor, never had money. And in my 20s, I decided I was going to get a piano and learn how to play the piano. Well, the teacher flat out told me one day that I wasn't going to make it with piano, that I should just give it up. And sad to say, codependent that I was, I listened to her and I quit and I never went back. And now that I have a son who's like a violinist virtuoso, my firstborn, I always thought, I could have been his accompanist. I could have. I could have this, I could have that. Well, it didn't happen. But that was my fault. I listened to someone who gave me some very bad advice, who told me I wasn't cut out to learn the piano, I couldn't learn the piano, and I believed her. Who are you listening to? Who are putting things in your mind that aren't true, of things that you can't do? Truth is, you could do a lot of things if you put your mind to it. And there is absolutely nothing you can't learn. Of course, it's good to have support. It's good to have people around you helping you. I learn best that way anyway. If I watch a YouTube video, I'll learn some things, but if someone actually teaches me, it's much more effective and there's more of a connection. Then she goes on to say, we strain and we become angry. We become angry because we don't think we could learn things. We become frustrated. Have you ever wanted to get your laptop and just throw it because either you lost your stuff in it, you couldn't figure something out, just the most frustrating stuff. And I remember as a teacher being so frustrated all the time because one thing that the profession is notorious for is throwing new stuff at you every day. Your inbox gets blown and here's a new software you have to learn this day. Literally 2 days, 3 days later, here's some more new software you got to learn. And remember, you're in school all day teaching, you're exhausted, you're talking to parents, you're dealing with children that are unruly, you're dealing with teachers who are backbiters and backstabbers, and finally you get home probably 5, 6 o'clock after staying late doing stuff, and then you need to learn some new software. I'm telling you, it never ends. So frustrating, and you're perpetually confused, and you could feel like you can never learn that. I certainly felt that way in the teaching profession, and even though in my evaluations I got good scores, I always felt confused and like I couldn't get this under my belt. Everything was so chaotic and confusing, and I would become frustrated and angry, and I finally resigned. Yay. Don't regret that for a minute. Then she goes on to say, finally, in despair, we turn away, deciding that the formula will never be available to our mind. That's sad when we get to that point. We have to always believe and have hope that what God has put us on this earth to do, He's going to equip us to do, and He's going to give us the people and the support to help us do it and the tools to do it. And the times that you feel alone, and you're confused and you really don't know how to do anything, just know God is preparing you. There will be times of confusion like that. That's just part of the journey. And then there are going to be days of clarity. Remember, this is entitled Learning New Behaviors. So when you sense those things, the anger, the frustration, the strain, thinking, you can't learn this, you can. When I look back now, 7 years ago when I first got my first iPhone, I was 44 before I got a smartphone, a few months before I separated and from my ex-husband. I started to learn more tech, and I was like a kid out of high school, didn't know how to do hardly anything because I was a homemaker and I homeschooled. But when it came to life, I had to really start from scratch, supporting myself, working, doing all those things, working for pay, because I worked, of course, at home, but working for pay, and it was very difficult, and I thought I would never learn anything. But thank God for people who came alongside me and encouraged me, helped me, social workers at a shelter I was at for a total of 3 months. Those social workers were like rock stars, and I'll never forget them. And they are amazing, amazing people, social workers. And little by little, I started getting clarity. 3 years after I separated, I opened up my coaching business. And that was miraculous. And God has helped me every step of the way. I cannot say that any of this has been by coincidence. It is totally His guidance. And I can also say that every job I ever wanted, certain schools I wanted to work at, certain things I wanted to do, every single one of them have come to pass. And it was to show me that, hey, you see what you thought you really wanted? That wasn't really what you wanted, was it? But I gave it to you. I let you experience it. And then I was able to experience it and let it go. And to continue on my journey. And it's all been a process. And I'm just so thankful to God that He has answered my prayers. All of them. Except for there are a few that He has not answered. But I know He will at the right time. Then she goes on to say, later, while taking a quiet walk, we break through. Quietly, the gift of understanding has reached that deepest place in us. It happens, folks. It really does. And it happens sometimes in the most unlikely ways. God uses the people you least expect. I mean, I could tell you story after story. The people you thought would be there for you, forget it, they're not. And the people you least expect are there for you. And your understanding is opened and you grow. You have learned. Then she says, it is hard to remember the frustration and confusion of those who have not yet caught on. It seems so easy now. Always remember that where you are, there are many way behind you that are on the same journey, and your job is to help them and not sugarcoat things, but to be real with them and to help them on their journey, just like people help us on our journey. It's beautiful. And one thing she said, that it's okay to despair sometimes. I don't know, to me, the word despair is not an acceptable word. When you despair, you have no hope. And God tells us, faith, hope, and love. The greatest is love. But you need to keep faith, hope, and love alive. And to me, someone who despairs is someone who has no hope. And when you believe in God, there is always hope. So I can't say I agree with that. So I am going to disagree with that one. Sometimes it's okay to despair. That's kind of a harsh word. And then it is okay to walk away and allow the breakthrough to come. It shall. That I do believe. Sometimes you have to let things go. Let things settle. There are times we want things so bad, and no matter how hard we try, it is not going to happen on our timetable. And when you let things go, sometimes things settle, and then there's a breakthrough, and there's clarity. All right, here's her prayer. Help me remember that frustration and confusion usually precede growth. I love that. That is true. If you think of all the times where you have grown as an individual the most, I guarantee you there was some kind of trauma or difficult situation attached to that. It is pain that helps us grow. If my situation is challenging me, it is because I'm learning something new. What is it you're supposed to be learning through that situation? We're supposed to be learning every single day. God says to grow in wisdom and knowledge, not just wisdom. We're supposed to be growing every day. So if my situation is challenging me, it is because I'm learning something new, rising to a higher level of understanding. Help me to be grateful, even in my frustration, that life is an exciting progression of lessons. And just when you're done learning one lesson and you are on the mountaintop, watch out, because here comes another little valley. And then it's constantly like this. Those life coaches that tell you that you could always be up here, that it's all a matter of how you think, not true. Okay, life comes at you, things hit you out of nowhere that you have absolutely no control over. You have to deal with them. And if you don't deal with them, you are living in denial. And so find a coach that's balanced and understands the roller coaster of emotions, of trials in your life, of trauma, and of the emotions that you go through. I wrote here, things don't happen to us but for us. That's a quote that I've heard different times. Don't know who wrote that quote. I will say this. If you are in an abusive relationship, never look at abuse as something that's challenging you to be a better Christian, a better person. Abuse is never acceptable. If you're being abused, you need to do something about it for yourself and your children. And it's not something that God is allowing for you to grow and learn some kind of lesson. And I know abusers are big on teaching victims lessons. You know, whether it's spiritual abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse. They want to teach you lessons. Sometimes it's physically, sometimes it's psychologically, sometimes it's spiritually. But if you are being abused, that's not what she's talking about, okay? So that's on a whole different level. All right, I'm going to open it up. If anybody has any comments, anything they would like to put in the comment area, we could talk further. Give you a little time, see if there's anything. This was a good reflection. Tough one, but a lot of good information in there. Hear it again if there are points that kind of escaped you. Definitely a good one. All right, share this with someone you think could benefit from it. You never know who it could help. And visit me again on Thursday, 12 p.m. All of these videos I put on my website, www.mymomentlc.com. And I would love to connect with any of you, see what your situation is, see how my gifts could help you. And I do a free consultation for everybody. Just connect with me and we will schedule something ASAP. It's a beautiful day out there. Go out and enjoy it. I hope you have a wonderful day, that you are blessed. And remember to learn new behaviors. Now, Thursday, the topic is enjoying the good days. Ooh, that's going to be good. All right, guys. Take care. Love you all. Bye.